Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we've got another newsroom review to discuss. In today's video, we're looking at a handful of signings, some bigger ones. We've got a couple of very interesting pieces of news, and we've got some trade rumors. 4 very interesting things to discuss involving Buffalo, Edmonton, Seattle, and Vancouver. We'll get to all the updates from the past couple of days coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. Now before we get started, don't forget to like this video and subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to do this with all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to comment. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. And don't forget to stay tuned for videos coming out in the very near future. So in today's video, as per usual, with our news and rumor reviews, we're going to start off with a couple of signings. We saw 3 signings from our past couple of days, and some of them were actually quite big. So we'll touch on all 3 of these signings here. So first, in the Chicago Blackhawks organization, with Frank Nazar entering the final year of his 3-year ELC, coming off a season where he split time between the NHL and AHL last year, the Hawks wanted to get him locked up before he had another really good season this upcoming season, so they signed him to a 7-year contract extension that will begin at the start of next season with an AAV of $6.59 million. So this on the heels of Jackson Blake getting a long-term extension after playing less than 100 NHL games. Nazar is the exact same thing. So very interesting note there. I think this is a really good piece of work. I think for the next 1, 2, maybe 3 years, this will definitely be an overpayment for the Chicago Blackhawks. But I think towards the tail end of this deal, like with Nazar projecting to be a solid top 6 forward at the NHL level, this could be a steal and a half for the Chicago Blackhawks. Last year had 12 goals and 26 points in 53 games in the NHL after he had 11 goals and 24 points in 21 AHL games. So played mostly in the NHL, also played in the AHL, and looked pretty good on both sides. So I think Nazar would be a staple for the Chicago Blackhawks top 6 both this year and going forward, and I think this is a pretty good deal for the Hawks. So very interesting note there. But Nazar has signed a 7-year extension. Then we saw one of the top UFAs left on the UFA market signing a new place, as Luke Kunin, who started last year in San Jose, finished in Columbus, left as a UFA from the Blue Jackets, wasn't able to get a solid NHL contract until now, but he has signed a 1-year league minimum deal with the Florida Panthers. So you know the Panthers, again, we felt Matthew Tkachuk for the start of the season. They did lose a little bit of their depth from this past season in free agency this past year because of all of the big money deals they need to pay Marchand, Bennett, and Ekblad. But I think Kunin can be a solid player here. He played in 75 games last year, putting up 11 goals and 18 points with the Sharks and the Jackets combined. He's a really solid bottom 6 guy, can play 4th line center minutes, could probably replace a production of the guy like Nico Sturm that he provided last year. So I definitely do think this is a really good pickup here for the Panthers. I think he's going to be a solid bottom 6 forward going forward for the Florida Panthers, and even though it's only a 1-year deal at league minimum, this is a solid pickup here for the Florida Panthers. So it's a very solid pickup there for Florida. And then finally, it happened. RFA center Marco Rossi has officially been extended by the Minnesota Wild after long and hard negotiations that led some people to think he could get offer sheeted or be traded. Marco Rossi has signed a 3-year bridge deal with the Minnesota Wild with an AAV of $5 million. This is really good there. It takes Rossi until he's very close to UFA status, and with him only making $5 million, if he still doesn't want to be in Minnesota in the next year or 2, the Wild could try and easily trade him, and I think there could be a lot of other teams who have some interest. Maybe not right now, maybe closer to the trade deadline or next off season. So I think it's a really good pickup here for both sides. Like for the Wild, they're able to get Rossi signed, so it's no longer a distraction for Rossi. This is a tradable contract if he still wants to get traded in the next year or 2. So Rossi came off a season, a career year, where he had 24 goals, 60 points in 82 games. And it looks like he could eventually be the Wild's 2nd line center, and hopefully he's not going to be a 4th line center if the Wild make the playoffs again this upcoming season. So very interesting note there about the RFA. Rossi has officially signed a 3-year bridge deal. UFA Kunin has found a new home in Florida, and Frank Nazar gets a 7-year contract extension before he's even played 100 NHL games. So very interesting note there. Next, going over to a couple of news updates. So when it comes to some news updates, we've got some very interesting things to talk about here. First, with some players signing overseas. Mason Morelli, who was last couple of seasons in the Vegas AHL affiliates, and Emil Bemstrom, who spent last year between Pittsburgh and Columbus, has been a solid like bomb 6 call-up option player over the past couple of years, have both signed overseas. Bemstrom in the Swiss League, Morelli in the KHL. So very interesting note there, like Morelli was never going to get an NHL level contract. He would have had to start the season at the AHL level, so instead of that, he ends up going to the KHL. While for Bemstrom, we talked about this earlier, how there was some interest from the Swiss League in bringing Bemstrom in. It's official now, so So Bemstrom is going over to the Swiss League, where he will be for the next couple of seasons, and maybe he does make a return to the NHL at a later date. But very interesting note there that Bemstrom and Morelli have signed overseas. When I'm staying with players signing overseas, Brad Hunt, the former longtime NHL defenseman from, I think, Vancouver. He has stayed with Vegas. He played Minnesota, Colorado. There were a couple of teams Brad Hunt played with. He hasn't played at the NHL level in quite some time. Is apparently receiving SHL interest. So very interesting note there. Like, I think he could really find a home in the SHL, be a solid sort of player there in the SHL. I don't really think if he signed an NHL contract, he will play the NHL level. He would be at best a call-up option. So he hasn't officially signed over there, but apparently it seems like Brad Hunt is receiving a lot of interest from the SHL. So very interesting note there. And lastly, going over to Matthew Tkachuk, according to some recent reports, Matthew Tkachuk has underwent surgery for the injury he suffered late last regular season that hindered him in the playoffs. And apparently he's hoping to make a comeback around January. That would be a big boost there for Florida. We already knew that Tkachuk was going to be out for at least a couple of months, so hopefully he can get back in like early to mid-January, play a couple of games with Florida, and then go over to the Olympics. So very interesting note there. But Tkachuk has gone and underwent surgery, and he will now miss the next couple of months. So very interesting note there. But those are all the updates, as Morelli, Bemstrom is signed overseas, Hunt is drawing interest from overseas, and Tkachuk has underwent surgery, will be out until potentially January. So very interesting note there. And lastly, going over to a couple of trade rumors. So lastly here, going over to a couple of trade rumors. We got a couple of very interesting trade rumors to talk about. So first, we're going to go over to the hockey news. Recently, an article by Michael Agello, he was talking about the Buffalo Sabres, and he wonders if the Seattle Kraken's Eeli Tolvanen might be a trade target for the Buffalo Sabres. Now, in my opinion, this makes complete sense. The Kraken, in my opinion, are not going to be a good team this year. I think Tolvanen is entering the final year of his deal. $3.75, if I'm correct, $1 million AAV for this upcoming season. He'll, if I'm correct, be a UFA afterwards. So I'm not sure if the Buffalo Sabres will want to do this sort of a deal unless they're going to sign him to an extension, or if they're by some miraculous way in a playoff spot come the trade deadline. But I could see this be a really solid fit there for Buffalo. Like, Tolvanen's on the younger side. I think he's like 26, 27 years old. So he's not an overly old player. He's a guy who can put you up between 20 25 goals playing with the right guys, in a scoring role in an offensive top six, playing with either guys like Thompson or Tuck or Quinn. I could see him be a lethal force on the Buffalo Sabres side. Now, A, would the Seattle Kraken want to trade Tolvanen after he's been such a good find off of a waiver claim from the Nashville Predators? And B, what would the Seattle Kraken want for Tolvanen? Like, I could potentially, with him being, if I'm correct, a UFA, see them maybe flip him at the trade deadline if he's not doing overly good. But like, I think they would want a pretty hefty price tag of like at least a second round pick and solid prospect, if not like a first round pick, or maybe some sort of NHL level player. Like, I could see Tolvanen in Buffalo. I'm just not sure if it's something that Buffalo is going to be doing in the very near future. So I agree with the article. I do think Tolvanen would be a really good fit in Buffalo. I'm just not sure if that's sort of a deal that could happen right now, but we'll wait and see. Like, personally, I do think Seattle's going to be a seller of this trade deadline, and if Buffalo's in the playoff race, I could see him go after Tolvanen because he would be a really lethal top 9 goal scorer. So we shall wait and see on that. Next, going over to the Edmonton Oilers, according to Jason Gregor on one of his recent radio hits, I think it was, or his podcast, he was talking with the Edmonton Oilers, and he says that he fully expects the Oilers to make some sort of a goalie move at the very least before the 2026 trade deadline. He says that he would be extremely surprised if the Oilers continue to go with Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard past the trade deadline. So whether that be a trade that happens, or a signing, or a waiver, or something that happens at some point during training camp right before season starts, or whether it's a deal that happens closer to the trade deadline, Gregor definitely does think that the Oilers will be making a move for a goaltender. Now, I don't think they'll be moving Skinner. He is a pending UFA. He'll be in the final year of his deal this upcoming season. The Oilers could try and re-sign him. I think that's a possibility. Won't be surprised if he left via free agency. But I definitely think that if this Oilers team wants to really get over the hump, they need to try and get better goaltending, because Skinner and Pickard, while they have gotten them to the playoffs, are not the goaltenders that are going to get them to the Stanley Cup. It's just not going to happen. So I think whether that's trying to go out on waivers, get guys like Dawes or DiPietro, go on a trade, try and get a guy like Tristan Jarry, or a guy like Sebastian Cossa, or whether that's trying to get some sort of an older veteran like a Jonas Korpisalo or something. I'm not exactly sure who they try and target, but the Oilers need some sort of a goaltending move. I think if they go and run with Skinner and Picard for the upcoming season, they are going to be disappointed a lot more than they have in the past couple of seasons. So if they have any shot at trying to make a playoff run this upcoming season, I think they need to make a goaltending move, and I completely agree with Jason Gregor. And I think that if the Oilers really want to take the next step forward, they have to. I just can't see them going to this next upcoming playoff run with Skinner and Picard again. I can't see it happening, so I'll have to wait and see on that. Next, going over to Thomas Drance. He was recently talking about the Canucks, and he says the Canucks are kicking tires on trying to add a middle six forward. Now, we've heard about this the entire offseason. One of the Canucks' main objectives to try and improve this team has been to add a middle six center. Now, they haven't at this point in time. They're still looking to try and do so. I think there's a possibility they could try and go after Mason McTavish if he's available. There's a couple of other guys, like, will they consider a Rossi move now that he signed? Will they try and get someone else? Like, I'm not exactly sure. At this current point in time, you have Pettersson, you have Heel, who I think would be ideally a good 1-3. If you have another 2, could Pavel Zacha be another name that could be of interest? Like, I'm not exactly sure who they're trying to target, but Drance says that if there's a deal there that presents itself that actually makes sense for Canucks to do, to try and add someone in the middle six, he thinks that they'll try and do that. So, once again, no guarantees. The Canucks have been trying all offseason to get a middle six center and haven't up to this point, but if they are able to, I could see them try and do something like that, so we'll have to wait and see on that. And lastly, going over to Rob Simpson, he did a recent article talking about how the New Jersey Devils and Montreal Canadiens both really tried this offseason to acquire Jared McCann. Now, we've heard about McCann's name ever since the trade deadline last year, leading into this offseason. The Kraken have made some very interesting moves, including moving Bjorkstrand and Gord in the offseason, making some very intriguing moves, like moving off Burakovsky, Mason Marchment, and Frederick Gaudreau in the offseason. But this Kraken team doesn't look a whole bunch better than it was last year, and last year they were just a couple of points below 500. So at this point in time, it looks like the Kraken are going to be a team who winds up missing the playoffs yet again. So with all that in mind, McCann's name has come up a whole bunch. He's got 2 years left on his deal this upcoming season and the following season at $5 million AAV. As I've mentioned before when we've talked about McCann, he has been the best expansion pickup by the Seattle Kraken of all of their expansion picks. So like, I would be cautious about moving him, and I'll only move him for the right price. Apparently, Montreal and New Jersey both tried to acquire him. Now, this makes sense. McCann can play center, and the Habs are looking for a second-line center. And I've talked about the Devils looking for a top 6, at the very least top 9 forward upgrade, and McCann would be that. So I don't think it comes as any surprise that the Habs and Devils had some major interest. Now, I'm guessing no deals came together because the Kraken didn't get an offer they would have liked. So like, I'm not sure what those two teams will have offered. My guess would have been like Jersey would have offered like a second-round pick and decent prospect. Same sort of thing with Montreal. The Habs would have some pretty decent prospects, but obviously it's not enough for the Seattle Kraken to make a deal with the Montreal Canadiens or New Jersey Devils. So I wonder if one of those two teams try and circles around, maybe in training camp or maybe closer to trade deadline this upcoming season. I think in Montreal, he would be a very fantastic 2C behind Suzuki, and in New Jersey, a very solid complementary piece to guys like Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, Timo Meier, Jesper Bratt, etc. So I can see those two teams have some major interest, not only right now in this past offseason, but also going forward. So we shall wait and see on that. But that's all I'm going to talk for today. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you think we'll see a Jared McCann move? I personally do think there's a possibility, especially if Seattle has another crappy season this year, and could Jersey and Montreal be some landing spots? Do you think the Canucks add a middle six center? Do you think the Oilers will trade for at some point a goaltender? And do you think Buffalo could try and go after Ellie Tolvanen? Definitely your thoughts on all of that, plus the news updates and signings from the past couple of days. That's all I'm going to talk for today. I'm going to like this video, and for those who are subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to do this with all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to leave a comment. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Don't forget to stay tuned for more videos coming out in the very near future. Also, the blog, Underwent news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So check that out. I have a link to that in the description below. Can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.